Hello, this is Heather, and today we are going to be looking at the Mobile Press Register collection. So this is an online database that we can search. Let's first, of course, start on the Marks Library homepage, and then we can go to the research databases. In research databases, we have tags on the side, and we can select the tag for newspapers. This lets us see all of the databases that specialize in newspapers. Awesome. So, okay, on this landing page, we can see all of the different sources that are part of this collection. We can also see that there are date ranges that these sources cover. This helps us give an idea of what we are going to be searching. One thing that's important to keep in mind, though, is that they don't guarantee that everything within the state range is going to be covered. So we can see that we have 1858 to 1992. That doesn't actually mean that it's going to include stuff from every single year. And between 1858 and 1992, there might still be gaps, so we can't really make that assumption. Anyway, from here we can use the search bar to actually do our search. We are going to be searching for two different topics. We are going to first search for a general topic, women's healthcare, and the second thing is we're going to search for a particular specific person. So I have filled in the search that I want to use, and I will describe my search. So I'm looking for women's health. One of the things that I want to do, though, is because whenever I am searching a database of newspapers, they usually do not have abstracts or subject terms or any kind of description about the content of the news article. What I'm usually trying to do for most newspaper collections, and definitely for this one, I'm trying to guess what words the author used when they wrote the news article. So these terms might depend on where the article was written, when it was written, and who wrote it and what kind of audience the article was written for. So an African American newspaper that was written by an African American journalist for an African American audience might have specific terms that would have been normal and common for the community. It also depends on time period. You can do this pre-research by talking to your professor, looking at class materials, or just based off your own understanding and your own research. Alright, so the first part of my term is woman. So I'm telling the database other words to treat the exact same as woman, even if it's not the same type of word. So woman and feminine, they're two different types of words, but I want it to mean the same thing. The second part of my idea is health. So I'm using health, and I'm also using possible other specific examples of how people might talk about health. So vigor, stoutness, hysteria, different parts of things that could be women's issues or parts of ways to measure health. Okay, and I have bonded these two parts of my idea together using the word near. Now, usually for academic article databases, I would use the Boolean operator and to connect two parts of my concept together. However, that is going to be difficult to do inside of a newspaper database because a newspaper database is doing a full text search. So if there's a whole page of a newspaper that has multiple articles, and one article uses the word woman and a totally different article uses the word vigor, it will give me that page if I use and. What near does is that I can tell it near 10, and it will only give me options of newspaper pages that have the word woman or one of my alternatives, 10 words within health or one of my alternatives. So I'm giving it this kind of proximity limiter to make sure that these words appear on the newspaper page or in the article within a certain distance so that they are hopefully related to each other. So if I do near 5, then that's within 5 words of each other. Near 10 is within 10 words of each other. So this is just a nice way to try to make sure that I'm finding relevant items. So I have 8,000 results. That's a lot. I can see what's available. Now for me, I can already decide to narrow this down because I can say, well, I want to look at old things. So I can limit down my search to look just in the past. This is where we can also see this gap. There's this gap of what materials are probably available in the first place. And I can see that I have these samples. So it's more difficult to kind of get an overview of what your search results are for newspaper articles versus like classic academic articles, because we don't have really any kind of information about what the subject is. So we do get a date, which is useful, and we get some kind of general information, but the only information we have about content is on the side. It shows me a snippet of the scan of the page, and it highlights where one of these words appear. All right, so now let's practice with how to search about a specific person. So when it comes to a person, we want to give different versions of their name. We are going to look at General Pope, who is part of the history of Mobile. He was, during Reconstruction, a person put in charge of Mobile. I just found out about this. I just looked at Wikipedia, so that's how I did my pre-research. So we're going to give a couple of options for how to put his name. General Pope, or John Pope, or General John Pope. So if I want primary materials about this General John Pope, then I'm going to have to be very specific about the time period that I look at, because I want things that are published contemporary to when he was in Mobile, when people are talking about him in Mobile, so I can have things that have that kind of closeness that primary sources require. So I can limit down, I can hit apply. And of course, whenever you're using newspaper sources, always think about who wrote the article, who allowed the article to be published, who the audience was. Is there any reason behind why the article was written? Was it written to make you dislike a guy? Was it written to make you excited to attend a fair? And also, if possible, you always want to compare that specific article against articles that were written by other newspapers, other people, and just see how your article that you found compares and contrasts against the information that's provided in other articles. So, good luck.